What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to a triple Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show podcast coming to you from smark.moment.com. Smack Talk Podcast, of course, is hosted as always by yourself, I should say, yours truly, Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
Hello, yourself. There you go. You can be yourself. There we go. This is the first time I think that there's ever been 3 events to talk about in one show. So I don't know how I'm going to really bounce out between all this stuff, because even when it came to the last time I needed to do the 2 of them, at least then it was only 2 and I could go back and forth between this match and then that match and then this match, that match kind of thing. This is not going to be the case. This is all over the place. We had NXT Great American Bash. We had AEW All-In Texas, which that one went from 1 o'clock until 9 o'clock. 8-hour show for that. Great American Bash was from 2 o'clock until around 6 or something, I think, or 7. Then Saturday night's main event just got done 8 minutes ago. So we got that to talk about as well. There's a lot to break down here. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of not particularly great. There's some injuries to talk about, which sucks, and some title changes, and quite a bit actually to break down. So if you don't know our usual scoop, we are going to break down every little bit that we can. Now, I watched all 3 shows as well as I could. Callum watched only AEW All-In. So when it comes to the WWE and NXT side of things, then you'll obviously mostly be hearing about me about that. But, you know, Callum will chime in with his thoughts about anything in particular if it ends up being the case. And I always want to know what you guys have to say. So if you're listening to this live or if you're listening to this after the fact as well, whatever it might be, leave your comments below, post a comment on whatever platform you're listening to this, whatever the case may be, whatever that thing is on all your environments. That might even just be hopping on over on the Discord channel. If you are over there, say hi, post whatever you want to post on there. Not necessarily anything, but you know what I mean. If you want to help us out on the monetary side of things and help support us in non-monetary ways as well, it's totally free to hit the like button, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell on YouTube. And if you do have a little spare change our way, you want to toss to the channel to help keep the lights on in the South, the thanks button is there. The join button will give you the YouTube channel membership and the same access as the same things as Patreon. Redbubble and TeePublic is also where you can pick up your merchandise too. But all that stuff is greatly appreciated in any kind of fashion that you help support us. So all that stuff is out of the way. Let's move a bunch of these things off my screen because I can finally start to get rid of some of these tabs. I had about, 27 tabs open all day, and now my computer, I'm sure, is desperate to get rid of some of these Firefox things and all. When it comes to breaking this down, it's going to be a mess in some ways, as I said, but we're just going to kind of bounce around. So if you are listening to this on the live chat, keep in mind that the best way for me to make sure that I see your comments is to donate to the super chat. And then that way, I don't bypass something entirely and all. But it might take me a minute to get around to something too if we're talking about a different topic and I don't want to derail the conversation and stuff. So all that aside, AEW, NXT Great American Bash, Saturday night's main event. 2 out of 3 of these shows, I would say, if you didn't watch it, you don't need to for almost any reason whatsoever. And then the other one, I would say, if you didn't watch it, you missed out on quite a bit. And, I want you to guess which one of those is which. It's pretty self-explanatory. The WWE shows, they didn't have a great night, as far as I'm concerned. And I will admit that I am not able to obviously watch every minute of every single thing and pay the fullest attention to every single thing that happened on all of those shows because I'm, watching 2 at the same time. I'm doing news coverage and on live coverage on 3 different websites at the same time. I'm getting emails about people that are telling me to update the heel and face turn list and all the other kind of things along those lines. So there are some gaps in what I had seen, and maybe I missed some really good things. Maybe I even missed some really bad things on some of that. But by and large, my general opinion, grand sweeping thoughts, I think NXT Great American Bash absolutely did not need to happen whatsoever. I feel like Saturday night's main event has 3 things that happened on it that are newsworthy, but that you didn't need to see it whatsoever. And then I feel like AEW pretty much knocked it out of the park. Now, not having seen the 2 of the other shows, but you've probably read the results and everything like that. Is there anything that would even in the slightest bit make you go, oh, I wish maybe I would have checked that out?
No. First of all, I don't really know any of the results for NXT Great American Bash because I didn't care enough to even check any of that stuff. I know the results of Saturday night's main event, but like, as I say, none of those matches vaguely interested me at the start point. And yeah, I had a thoroughly fantastic evening watching one show.
Well, I will fill you in on those other things. I will start off by saying that on this pre-show kind of lull period that they had the 2 hours of the pre-show for AEW All-In and then the hour-long pre-show of Great American Bash, that time frame was very much a situation where I was like, okay, I don't have anything I really need to do right now. Oh crap, okay, well, we're getting some pretty bad news that's shuffle on the card, and that was that Adam Cole was forced to relinquish the AEW TNT Championship. And they didn't specify why that was the case, just that he wasn't medically cleared to compete, and that they were going to switch that match up, because obviously he was not going to be able to have that match against Kyle Fletcher. So instead, they decided that they were going to announce a 4-way where Daniel Garcia was added into the mix. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit of sense. And then also Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. And talk about somebody who had one of the biggest standouts of the weekend. This is like Dustin Rhodes' weekend in some ways. And, we'll break down some more specific when it comes to that. But I was not anticipating that would have been part of the coverage that I needed to do. And in fashion of what they did with ROH Supercard of Honor and whatever, you can't just have those reports that come out that say it's going to end before Saturday night's main event. It's going to have less matches than normal. It's an AEW show and it's going to have 19 matches and it's going to go on for 8 hours. So they added more matches. That was hectic. I don't want to do this like multi-show thing ever again, even though it seems like they're going to be doing it because we got confirmation as well tonight that Heat Wave is definitely happening on August 24th. But for that little short window, the only things that were really going on were the 3 matches on the 0 hour. And those were the Sons of Texas, Dustin Rhodes, Marshall Von Erich, Ross Von Erich, and Sammy Guevara. Kevin Von Erich accompanying them to the ring and getting involved a little bit with an Iron Claw, beat the Shane Taylor Promotions group, Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, Carly Bravo, and Captain Sean Dean by pinfall. Match by match, I'm probably not going to be able to say too much about specifics and all that, but chime in at any point, Callum, if you want to break down the matches themselves on AEW. Did you watch the 0 hour?
Yes, I did watch all 0 hour. I thought it was actually a pretty good 0 hour, and not just because of the matches themselves. But I thought this match was a bit like it was fairly nondescript. It was a short little sprint, which is only really designed to put the Sons of Texas on the show than to get Kevin Von Erich to do an Iron Claw. That's essentially what the whole backdrop of a match, just to get that moment to happen, and that was worth it on its own. So. Yeah, it wasn't really much of a showcase. Probably wanted to save Rhodes and Guevara's energy because they would be wrestling later on in the show. So yeah, there's not really much else to say other than the babyfaces won as they would do, and we got to see Kevin Von Erich give an Iron Claw, which is always fun.
Then we had that big boom AJ and the conglomeration, Tomohiro Ishii, which he was pronounced multiple times on the pre-show as Tomorrow Ishii. And I thought that was funny. Kyle O'Reilly and Hologram also teaming up, and you got Big Justice and the Rizzler, of course, in there against Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero, Hechicero, and Lance Archer of the Don Callis family. Big Justice gets pushed down, gets the spear Trent Beretta. Big Boom AJ gets the pinfall, and Rocky Romero, as we were all talking about, was like a guarantee for the end of this match.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just like, again, it's a fairly nondescript like 8-man tag match. Just, a few little nice spots here and there, but the whole thing was built around Trent Beretta shoving down Big Justice, and just getting the massive amount of heat for that, and so you eventually have him get his carpents by Justice spearing Trent Beretta, and then, as we all predicted, AJ getting the pin on Rocky Romero. As like, he's the most like generic wrestler that you could possibly imagine in terms of just his ring work and what he does. But the crowd fucking love it, and so they're gonna keep doing it because he gets good reactions. He's got the basic heat principles down. So.
And I thought it was funny that Big Justice standing next to Rocky Romero, they were the same height.
Same height, yeah, that was pretty funny as well.
I was like, all right, there's, your intimidation factor goes down a little bit when you've got this like 14-year-old kid or whatever. He's like, I'm gonna kick your ass. It's like, yeah, he looks like he could,
You can imagine, because like he's still like a young kid. Like he's only 12 years old at the moment.
He's only 12. So I thought he was closer to 15 or so.
No, he's 12, yeah.
Jeez. So he's going to grow to be like, that growth spurt hits, he's going to be 6'8" or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be like he'll be, well past his father's height probably. So, but I could definitely see, like, if he wants if he gets the bug from these little appearances they're making, whether he wants to take up a career in pro wrestling moving forward.
Who knows? Could be. And then Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood beat Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd. FTR beating the Outrunners, if you want to go by the tag team names.
Not as good as their collision match. But, a decent little showing for both teams again. I think FTR has really brought out the best in the Outrunners, which you would expect because the FTR are one of the best tag teams in the world. And we wouldn't really get the fullness of FTR's influence on the show until later on. But, they get the victory here, and that helps them in their likely pursuit of tag team gold in the future.
So by this point in time, 0 Hour is closing up, and the hour-long pre-show of Great American Bash, which was just Sam Roberts and Megan Morant just going like, man, how great is this show going to be? Because, they can't do anything worthwhile to watch.
I will say, just to as a note for it, outside of the 3 matches, there was the best thing on the entire 0 Hour, which was the car ride with Renee Paquette and Jon Moxley. I
wasn't paying attention to that. What ended up happening during there?
Well, essentially, it was Renee trying to talk. Well, essentially in some way interviewing Moxley, but realistically talking to her husband about all the things that he's done and why is he doing these sort of things and how difficult it's been for her and how difficult it's been to kind of coincide with all of this, try and either stay neutral or stay on side of this and watch all this stuff happening. And Moxley just talking about how it's essentially just justifying it to his wife rather than just justifying it as a as a character almost. It was a really well done thing, and it felt like, as you would expect, a husband and wife that don't really see eye to eye on this thing to be discussing this. So I thought that was very well done.
Huh. Worth going back and looking, or just one of those things that, if you got a chance to see it, then it was fine, but it's not really worth going back to.
I mean, it was about 5 minutes long, so it's not like the end of the world if you want to go check it out. You might not get into the same thing as I did, but I thought, for considering what typically happens on either 0 Hours or kickoff shows or anything along those lines, I thought it was an interesting segment.
I'm sure it was way more interesting than the Great American Bash, at least, because there was nothing there. Nothing at all.
I thought it was probably more interesting than the whole show, probably. But I can imagine.
I mean, for parts of it, that started off with Javon Evans beating Jasper Troy in a match that was, from what I could tell, because again, now it's at a point where 2 matches are happening at the same time. That's happening opposite of the Ops going up against Death Riders for the Trios Championships. I'm dividing my attention. I'm trying to prepare for, I'm updating FTR beats the Outrunners. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. So couldn't dedicate all my time and focus to either of these 2 matches. And from what I had seen, Evans and Troy looked like they had a decent enough match, but I say that in the sense about being this, they would have had the exact same match if it was an episode of NXT. And I've been critical of this, and I'd be remiss not to repeat the same thing that I've been critical about in the past. I don't like it when WWE pay-per-views or AEW pay-per-views or anything along those lines feel like I'm watching an episode of the TV show. I feel like I should watch something that's more special. And if they want to call it a premium live event and a special event, I think it should be more special than a regular TV show. And Jasper Troy and Javon Evans had a perfectly fine enough match from what I could see, maybe even better than what I had seen. But there's nothing at all that made me go, wow, that looks like something that I would have been really happy to have spent some exorbitant amount of money to go and see in the arena that night, especially with the prices that they've been doing. Now, the Ops against Death Riders seemed like that was just as good, if not better, of a match than Javon Evans and Jasper Troy. The Ops retain the titles. Afterward, they take out Samoa Joe, and he gets pillmanized with, like, you know, the head and neck version. Is there actually a separate term for when you pillmanize somebody's neck? Because pillmanizing is usually for the leg, but, you know, the concerto is not that, so, yeah.
Pillmanizing is the action of trapping something in the chair and stamping on the chair.
Yeah, so...
It doesn't matter what the body part is.
Old school Brian Pillman stuff there coming back into play, and that takes Joe out for later on, too, to not be able to help out and do the whole thing with the Ops and, you know, the babyface front against the Death Riders.
Yeah, I thought the match was solid, if not spectacular. I think it was just a lot of guys doing a lot of hard-hitting moves for the most part. Just a lot of, especially between Gabe Kidd and Samoa Joe, I think they really stamped down of like, okay, they really want to do this singles match at some point, so we're doing some good stuff here. I thought Hobbs was probably the most standout guy in the entire match. Just really, like, his presentation since coming back from his latest injury has been excellent, because he just looks like a mean motherfucker that's just going to beat the shit out of you, and he's got the neat chance now as well that help get his aura over. So I thought he was great in this match, and the Ops win as they should have done, with Joe hitting the muscle buster on Yuta, but then they beat them down afterwards. They pillmanize Joe's neck, and so Joe is out injured. Don't know how long he'll be out for, but presumably Shibata and Hobbs left with him to go to the hospital. So they weren't involved, wouldn't be around for the main event to help support Hangman. So that was essentially a case of Death Riders, even if they couldn't win the titles, their objective was to make sure the Ops wouldn't be a factor in the main event, and they succeeded with that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good storytelling. I like that quite a bit. Then they had on Great American Bash, Sol Ruca defended the North American Championship of the women's division by beating Izzi Dame. Big moment here was essentially after a bunch of times when Zarya was just picking up Tatum Paxley and not wanting to, like, really hurt her, she decided, screw it. Tatum Paxley got involved in the match, so she was just going to take her out. So again, the big alternative to the big AEW show is Zarya decides to tackle Tatum Paxley. And sure, Sol Ruca's fun. Izzi Dame's done better now than I think that she's ever done. Nobody's going to pay more attention to that than the men's casino gauntlet. And it's one of those great examples tonight of you didn't come close to comparing, matching up something to another thing that would have been like, okay, maybe at this point somebody turns the channel. This was a failure on WWE's front tonight on every single possible way. Sol Ruca retains the title. Cool. I like that. There's really not anything to say about that. There's way more to say about the men's casino gauntlet. And for anybody that's curious about how the breakdown of that went, we had Mark Briscoe starting off, then MJF, as we had already known ahead of time, Ricochet following that, then Bandito, followed by Konosuke Takeshita. Then there was, I believe, Mystico. Mystico.
Mystico, Josh Alexander, Anthony Bowens.
Who made it to the ring.
Yeah, he did make it to the ring. Anthony Bowens, Roderick Strong, Brody King, Juice Robinson making his return from injury. Kota Ibushi, the Beast Mortos, and your final entrant was Max Caster.
So there was something that happened here and in the women's casino gauntlet that I thought was really strange. When they had gotten to entry number 13, I believe, they just stopped having people come out at regular intervals. And I know that, like, in WWE, this is a thing that is a regular thing when it comes to the Elimination Chamber and the Royal Rumble. It's technically supposed to be the same interval between each thing, but they don't come anywhere close to it when they decide that they don't want to. And there are plenty examples in Royal Rumbles where the 90 seconds between different entrants is more like 30 seconds. And it's just like, we got to keep the momentum going. And then there's plenty instances where it's 90 seconds, and then it's another 90 seconds, and then it's another 90 seconds, and then suddenly the 10-second count starts. And that's what was happening both for these two Casino Gauntlet matches. They had reached, like, I think it was Brody King might have been. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, we're going to go like 4 minutes or something before the next person's going to come out. It's very strange, but they ended up doing it again. So it must be a thing that they must be like, okay, once we get to around a dozen people, we need to slow this thing down. But it was a great match. Downside to it being, it's the same as every other multi-man match, where if it's like Money in the Bank or it's a Fatal 4-Way even, especially if it's like 6-pack challenge type levels, somebody comes in, they do a bunch of moves, everybody else is on the outside for the next couple minutes, and you get like, you know, Mark Briscoe and MJF and Ricochet are fighting together. Bandito comes in. Now we're starting to get a little bit too much. By the time we get to Mystico, it's Mystico in the ring with MJF. Mark Briscoe's not seen for another 7 minutes. You know what I mean? But you get those moments. You know, you're paying attention to the new person that came out and seeing what they do, rather than looking at Roderick Strong hanging onto the apron and looking into the ring for a couple minutes to be like, is it time for me to run in yet? I enjoyed it. MJF wins. He steals a pinfall from Mark Briscoe, who had hit a J Driller on Roderick Strong and then got tossed away just so MJF could get the pin. And once that happened, that made me even happier, because then I was like, okay, now there's more of a chance that Hangman's going to win.
Yeah, so the Casino Gauntlet match, the men's, I wasn't a huge fan of this match. I think it was a bit too slow, and it didn't feel as impactful as the previous one, or the last big one they did at All-In last year. Of course, I was in the crowd for that one, so maybe that helped influence it. But it felt like the names in it were bigger. I mean, this was a good opportunity to show off like the depth of the roster in terms of like your upper mid card to like MJF obviously being like a main event level talent, but the rest of them being more the span of your mid card, and to show off like the riches of talent that you have available to you just from your own roster alone, and then throwing guys like Mystico and Kota Ibushi as well. It was obviously good to see Juice Robinson come back clean shaven. That will take some getting used to.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange. At first I didn't know who it was when he was running out, especially because of the outfit too, because that was a little bit different.
But I think, but yeah, it was like it was a fun match still. I'm not going to say it was a bad match, probably such imagination, but I think it was a bit. It did feel like there was just not a lot going on in certain periods of time. We'll get to the women's match, say that I think they handled it much better than this one did. But you know, you still had your cool moments. You had like Takeshita hitting like a double German suplex on both Bandito and Ricochet. I think Ricochet was MVP of the entire match because he was taking so many bumps and getting hit so many times. He was probably the guy that was in the ring the most out of anybody for a consistent amount of time. So
I would think either him or Bandito. Bandito was in there quite a bit here and there. So
yeah, Strong also got quite a lot of a showcase in this one as well.
And they did a lot of stuff with Takeshita and Josh Alexander, which of course makes sense because like they would be working together, and you know, it was like logical booking the way that they would have done a lot of that.
I think it was one of those things where, in terms of this long gap between the Beast Mortos' entrance and then Max Caster's entrance, that big. Obviously, they say that it's like random intervals, so it could literally be any number in between them. So they do they don't have a set number between entrants, so they cover off that basis. But I think it was just a case of like having all these guys fight out, and then you would assume that okay, it's been going for a little while, and then once the number starts going down, you're probably thinking at that point, oh my god, it's going to be a big name because they've waited this long, and so it's clearly somebody, it's either a big return or like someone's debuting or something along those lines. And then you have Max Caster come out, which is, you know, designed to immediately go that sort of reaction with him coming out and doing Best Wrestler Alive, and then they pretty much go almost immediately to the finish after that of MJF getting the pin on Roderick Strong, stealing it from Mark Briscoe. That sets up what I assume was going to be the post All-In feud between Briscoe and MJF, like a proper one-on-one feud for a little while MJF like prepares to like either cash in his opportunity or however it ends up working. I pretty much said that he's the number one contender, so the way that Excalibur was presenting it was a sense of it's not a cash in, he's just the number one contender now.
Yeah. Like a perpetual number one contender thing that they did before. It's like they might be kind of tweaking that.
Yeah, so we'll see how it ends up playing out. But yeah, as I say, I don't think it wasn't like the weakest Casino Gauntlet they've ever done, but it wasn't the strongest either. But I think it was just another opportunity to just showcase the talent. I think the thing that took me out of it the most was probably Mystico's entrance. Because even though I love the entrance that he's had with like the Mimera song that he's brought back, it's just the fact that, you know, you stop the middle of the match to make sure it gets to the point where you encourage the crowd to sing along. But this was a crowd that's largely didn't speak Spanish and so don't know the lyrics to the song, and so you're just listening to the song, and then Jeff has to just stand there and look at Mystico like taunt and do the dancing around. That I didn't much enjoy it, and also it was way too long. It was 35 minutes long. It's like it didn't need to be that long.
Yeah, while MVP is sitting there going, Max, just hit him. Yeah, just hit him.
MVP was good on commentary, so that elevated it a bit. But yeah, the right result. I think everyone would have expected MJF to get the victory. So
I don't know. I've lost track at this point, like which match starts when at this point for one show compared
I'm going
to
to
the
say
other.
This one went 35 minutes long, so I presume it was the NXT match.
I don't know when Falls Count Anywhere for the NXT North American Championship had taken place. Like if it was during and then ended by the time Casino Gauntlet was done or whatever. Like it's, you know, it is what it is, whatever. And we're just going to bounce back and forth. But the Ethan Page and Ricky Saints match ended with Ethan Page retaining. And he did so in part because Jasper Troy got involved again. And he did so because Ricky Saints was battling it out with Ethan Page backstage and just sort of bumped into Jasper Troy, who was just kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'll fuck you up then. And I don't know. I know obviously they want to go with the idea of Jasper Troy is like a mean dude and whatever, but he's now lost 3 matches and they have had him lose more than he's won. Yet they are so desperate to just be like, but don't forget that he's really big and he's dangerous. This doesn't tend to work out. Usually when somebody is big and mean and, oh, you should watch out for them, but they continue to lose, you make them lose enough times quick enough and people stop giving a shit. Sometimes it's very quickly, like say, you know, Karrion Kross losing his first match for some reason on Monday Night Raw. And some other times it takes a couple more losses, but they need to start giving Jasper Troy some actual wins. He needs to maybe like, I don't know, win the Heritage Cup or something. I don't like the Heritage Cup. I don't think that's good for him, but you know what I mean? Like they need to do something where it's not just he can beat people down, but if he's actually in a match, he's going to lose. And I'm fine with Ethan Page retaining the title. I was expecting Ricky Saints to win it back. Maybe this means Ricky Saints gets called up to the main roster. Maybe not. There's something to be said about the possibility of replacing somebody that we're going to get to a little bit later on. But if Page is champion now, again, still, and he's not losing this to Javon Evans because they've already had those matches, and if he's not losing it to Ricky Saints, I don't know who's next in line. Whatever it is.
Sure, I'm sure that happened.
Yeah.
It's just it's just quite funny. It's like, hey, great job, Ricky. looks like you're way more positioned now than you were in AEW. Seems like it's all going great. It could be worse. You could be, losing to Ron Killings after being fairly well protected throughout your AEW run. It's like that was the moment it was all building to. Those unwillingness to do jobs on episodes of Dynamite or Collision, making sure you were ready for that random loss on SmackDown to Ultra.
Yeah.
That's what they seemingly like Ethan Page a lot. Yeah. I'm sure they'll find someone for him to drop the belt to. But yeah, I think it's maybe it's an indication. For Ricky Sane, I hope it's just an indication that they're just moving up to the main roster fairly soon.
Could be. And he's at a point too that if you wanted to keep Ricky Saints in NXT, you totally could. You could keep him around for another whole year and maybe even work his way up to the main title and whatever. But you want to throw him on SmackDown, you could just throw him on SmackDown. He's fine. He doesn't need that extra seasoning. By this point, we definitely were at least over. I don't know. I'm repeating that twice. What am I? One of those droids from Star Wars? To the 4-way match for the vacated AEW TNT Championship. And Adam Cole gets in the ring and relinquishes the title, drops that, cuts a quick promo about basically thank you for your support and everything. Again, they haven't said what it was that made him medically disqualified, but all the vibes were acting like he was saying that he was done with his career. And for this to have been, we're going to cancel you today and you can't do this. And he didn't have any kind of sling on. He wasn't limping from what I could tell. I kind of have to assume that it was probably the concussion stuff or some neck thing or something that would have made them very hesitant to trust that he could go and do a match. And for him to be that upset, for Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong to come out. Yeah, Britt Baker tweeted out a little heartbreak emoji. I don't know, man. That's not good. I mean, it's not going to do anytime anybody gets injured, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, so the whole, as soon as he came out for doing his entrance to relinquish the championship, you could just tell by the eyes that he's been told news that's fucked him up entirely. I don't want to go into too much rapid speculation about the nature of the injury. If they want to tell us, they'll tell us. If he wants to tell us, he'll tell us. But the speculation that people are saying is that he suffered a clothesline in the collision match on Thursday, and then was seemingly not feeling too well after that. Clearly was checked out because obviously he wrestled on Thursday. This is only 2 days after that. So was checked out in the meantime, probably informed today that he wouldn't be medically cleared and probably said that, yeah, this is bad news. You need to take time off. Because you could tell the emotion was very raw and very real and very sudden. He didn't know what to really say going into it because he just he didn't come out and say specifically I am going to retire, but he came out with the idea of, oh, but I could be retiring. This could be the last, not the last you ever see of me, but the last I'll ever enter a ring as a champion or anything along those lines because I might not be able to wrestle ever again.
Yeah, it kind of had the same sort of vibes as when Kevin Owens was talking recently.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a guy that went in, had been told news very recently that was really, really bad for his career and his health, and was there to we just had to just present it as honestly as he possibly could. And so I think I know that I've been critical of Adam Cole's recent performances, but by all accounts and by everyone pretty much says it, he's the nicest guy in the world, and he doesn't deserve everything that's happened to him over the past 3 years in terms of injuries.
No, I mean, and if anybody ever takes our criticism of his in-ring performance and stuff and his lack of momentum, if anybody ever takes that as us being fuck that guy or something, then it's never the case. And we've all said before, we thought that he was fantastic in NXT, and we want to see that Adam Cole again. And these injuries are they're really fucking killing him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a mixture of injuries, but like momentum, it's just injuries just affect your performance. It just naturally will happen over time, and it's just a case of I don't hate the guy. I don't really mind if he's stuck around with AEW his entire career, as long as it was like you know, eventually your days, whatever level you are, your days challenging for world championships and being at the top of the card, eventually fizzle out. It just happens, and but like
We're going to talk about Saturday night's main event.
yeah, we'll get to that. But like it's so cruel to see it ripped away from someone who's clearly so passionate about the sport and so passionate about being with AEW. Someone who did such great work with NXT and even Ring of Honor and other places as well. Still fairly young. Like he's not even in his 40s. Like not even touching really his 40s yet. And to just see that potentially fizzle out because through no fault of his own. It's just been one, like, so he's just been a bit cursed since coming to AEW, and I don't know, like, what's happened, and like, as I say, he doesn't deserve everything that's fallen his way since then. But you could tell it was, as I say, it was a very raw, emotional promo, and the crowd felt every second of it because, like, based on the reaction, like as I say, not his fault. Again, not his fault. But it killed the crowd because they were just upset about the fact of, oh shit, we've just seen a guy that we've loved over the years and have a great deal of respect for as a wrestler, potentially say that he's never going to wrestle again. So of course that's going to have a massive downer on the entire show, and unfortunately it carried over into the match itself.
So give me about 20 seconds. I'm going to turn on my AC because I'm now sweating at this point. But give us a breakdown of the match. It was Dustin Rhodes, Daniel Garcia, Sammy Guevara, and Kyle Fletcher, who I was still like, we'll probably just give the belt to Kyle Fletcher. And then when this happened, then he had this whole Adam Cole thing. I'm like, I think I might need to change that Kyle Fletcher thing.
Yeah. So the match, like, essentially went as well as it could do considering the circumstances. It was a case of everyone was in such a bad mood after the way that Adam Cole had to relinquish the title. I don't think they were also a little bit unsure about having both Sammy and Dustin in there because, yes, they're from Texas. So that's like the kind of the big selling point from it is the fact that, okay, we'll throw in the two Sons of Texas guys. The issue being that the Sons of Texas are a Ring of Honor act, even though both of them have been in AEW for a long time. It is a case of they are a Ring of Honor act. No one knows anything about the Sons of Texas as a tag team because they barely ever feature on AEW. So when you build the entire match around them working together in the match and then potentially coming to some sort of blows to each other or getting each other's face when they have some miscommunication, they accidentally hit each other. It's like no one fucking cares because we don't see this tag team at all. We don't know anything about them, and frankly, there's still, even though he's from Texas from the area, there's still a lot of like apathy towards Sammy Guevara in general. Just people don't like the guy, and people don't care about the guy. So
he's got a little bit of that Miz thing going on.
Yeah,
where it's like some people just do not fuck with him.
And like they didn't add anything. Like the crowd was already just in a state of like sadness because of the whole Adam Cole thing, and it was four guys working their absolute hardest. Can't take anything away from their work rate or performance to try and get the crowd into it and try and give them a good show. But it was just never going to happen. And they did a few little bits and pieces. They did like the train running into Kyle Fletcher with Orden doing the kick to the groin. I thought towards the end they had like Garcia and Sammy Guevara on the outside and had Kyle Fletcher beating the shit out of Dustin Rhodes constantly, but ended up not coming together for him. And then I kind of got the feeling towards the end where it's like Dustin was getting a few kind of quick pinfalls, thinking, oh, they're actually going to give the title to Dustin. And then they have Garcia put in the Dragon Tamer, and then Dustin's able to get out of it, put him into a small package, and then it just looks like it's almost the way they've shot it almost made it look like it was a mistake the pin had happened. Because Sammy was pretty much on top of them by the time the pinfall went, but you could tell that that was actually meant, that's by design. It's one of those things that it's kind of one of those instances where I can totally see why they did what they did. Like, you've just had a really like downer moment on your entire show, so in front of a Texan crowd, you crown your basically your biggest veteran who's been there since day one, and you give him his first ever AEW championship. Make him like holding 3 championships at the same time at the moment. But
fucking crazy, right? Like, this dude's got to hold both sets of the tag titles at ROH, and he's also going to hold the TNT title. Which, if my math is correct, this is the first singles title that he's won since 1999.
Yeah, pretty much, because he never won a title in TNA, and he's never won anything other than the tag title in his later WWE runs. Never won anything in his final run with WCW. So yeah, since he won the Intercontinental title in '99, this is his first ever singles championship.
Crazy.
Yeah, and it's it's a cool moment, and we know what Tony Khan is like. He likes to treat his veterans well. He likes to make sure that they're looked after and given the respect that they deserve for the hard work they put into it. Again, I can understand people being upset by the decision, because it is a case of nostalgia does hold back wrestling's evolution, and there is too much, especially in probably the last couple of decades, there is too much for clinging to the past. It's like these guys definitely have a place, so they could definitely help with helping put people over, but you get to a point that outside of certain exceptions like Sting, we don't want to see these guys winning all of the top titles and keeping the younger generation down and not being able to transition over. What I will say is that I reserve judgment on how good a decision I think this is by Wednesday night. Because I am going to presume that on Wednesday night it will be Kyle Fletcher versus Dustin Rhodes for the TNT Championship, and Kyle Fletcher is going to kill him in about 2 minutes.
That's a very good chance that happens. And it's just we wanted to give the crowd at the moment a big pop, and that was a means to offset the Adam Cole news. And hey, it doesn't hurt. What's his face? Kyle Fletcher. It doesn't hurt him to have to just wait a little bit. And, I could see that being the case. But at the same time, it was sort of just all right, if it's not going to end up being that he loses that title, man, you really are putting a lot on Dustin Rhodes right now. It's
I don't expect him to have a multiple month long reign with this title. I think he'll be over pretty quickly. If not by the end of this week, then by maybe they could do something for whatever show Blood and Guts is going to be on if it does take place in the summer this year. But it's a case of I think they just wanted to have that nice moment. It's the issue being that AEW has done this. Probably the closest equivalent I could say is Saraya.
Yeah.
And that reign went on way longer than it should have done, considering the fact it was just there for a hometown pop moment, and it wasn't really a hometown. People in the UK don't really like Saraya either. So it's but at least in Texas, Dustin Rhodes is kind of revered, and Dustin Rhodes is kind of revered in general from an AEW standpoint. So I think it will work well as long as Fletcher does the title soon. But I don't buy into the narrative this is a big moment to crown a young up and coming star. It's what's the TNT Championship, and Fletcher's crowning moment was the feud with Ospreay. That's the thing that's made him the proto star that he is now. Him winning the TNT title was just a continuation of that journey. It's not that's the thing that will make him.
Yeah. And you know what? It's sometimes it's better for people to not win a very obvious match as well that they were going to win. And sometimes it's better to throw that out there and for people to get a little bit annoyed. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but sometimes people can be like, oh, that's fucking stupid. I wanted Kyle Fletcher to win. And then on Wednesday or Saturday or whatever it might be, he wins, and then they're like, all right, well, then now things are back to the way that they should. And now they're happier about it. Instead of just being like, I knew that he would win. It's fucking predictable. There's ways to, argue that one way or another. And I'm not really anticipating that Dustin Rhodes is going to hold this a whole long time. If he does, that's going to be very shocking for me. But you know what? For tonight, sure. And it was a running theme of people doing double duty and triple duty and, wrestling last night, wrestling tonight, that whole thing. Dustin Rhodes beats everybody out with that by wrestling 3 times. So good for him. He's the only person I think that they had said like on some record things before about like the only person that's wrestled over the course of like 5 different decades. Guy's a legend. So good for him. Now, unfortunately, not good for some things. Around this time, this is when they decided, well, now we need to have that contract signing over in NXT because, hey, if you aren't excited about watching that AEW show with, you know, the most important things that they could do on their biggest like WrestleMania show, and hey, we got like a title change just went down and all that stuff. We know what the kids want. They want people talking about how they're going to sign papers. And it was as basic of a fucking contract signing as you can get. And it's just a matter again of like, I don't know who it is in WWE that thinks that contract signings are very interesting. I thought that this was going to go away a little bit with Vince being gone. And I guess it wasn't Vince. Or I guess it was Vince and other people. And they just decided, you know what, it's something we all want to continue going forward. These are boring and they're not something that you should ever put on a pay-per-view unless you're going to do something that's very, very like twisty. The twist here was not like that because it was just Joe Hendry and Mike Santana decide that they're going to team up and put Trick Williams through the table. You know, the table that every single time there's a contract signing, somebody goes through. And it's the most obvious scenario that those two that are like, we don't get along, but we both agree you need to lose this match and we will work together. And you know exactly how that's going to break down too. Then Dark State comes out and they attack. And it's weird that AEW has been on this kick lately of 8-man tag team matches. And WWE, for the life of them, cannot book Dark State to be in an 8-man tag. They are obsessed with the idea of putting those 4 guys in 6-man tags. And this is, I think, the 5th, if not the 6th time that this has happened. So they keep doing this thing where it's like Joe Hendry does or doesn't have an affiliation with Dark State. He's going to be forced to team up with Hendry and Santana in the 6-man tag. Tuesday night, come NXT, we know how this is going to break down. He's either going to reveal that he's a part of Dark State, or it's going to continue to do we don't want to reveal that quite yet, but he's not working on their side and he leaves the match or something along those lines. So it's blah. It's not anything that really is like, even just typing out contract signing, that's all I needed to type out and everybody would have known exactly what happened and they wouldn't have needed to watch that segment. I think around that time frame is when the tag team match that was happening with Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay against the Young Bucks was going down. And I was like, oh, good. I don't have to pay as much attention. I can listen to the contract signing and I can actually watch Swerve and Ospreay against the Young Bucks. And I was glad that I was able to because that was a good match. And I was very happy with the outcome. Swerve and Ospreay win, meaning that the founding fathers no longer have their kayfabe EVP status. They're not able to lord that kind of power over the roster anymore. And they had a good entrance, too. It's going to be on my list of one of those more interesting entrances for the end of the year awards. And I liked that they did it's not like 100% like 1-to-1 ratio, but I like that they did the little reference to how Ospreay had sacrificed himself to make sure that he got kicked instead of Swerve. And that sort of ran their like tensions into the ground and got them to start bonding. And then in this one, Ospreay was a little bit weak and Swerve was the one that picked up the ball. And good match with a good outcome. Hell yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah, I thought this was an excellent match and exactly what the show needed after the little bit of the downer of the Adam Cole injury news and the kind of weird 4-way match for the TNT title. Needed to just hit them right with this one, right from the start with like Ospreay's entrance, the Assassin's Creed thing, because that's the franchise that's kind of shapes his whole character. Great to see JoJo Offerman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she did pop up during that.
So she did a performance of Shaka Khan's Ain't Nobody, and if people don't know the reference to that, it's that was the song that Swerve Strickland used to use quite a lot on the independent circuit before joining WWE and then AEW.
I was curious because I was just like, oh, I like this song. I remember this song. It's like it's in my music collection. I don't know why she's singing that, but all right, now it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, just a reference to it, and it's good to see JoJo get a payday, get an appearance on the big show. Had some fireflies going on in the background while it was going on, so that was a nice touch. And the Young Bucks entrance was a bit long in the tooth for me. Like maybe could have cut that speech down by a paragraph, maybe also just to ease up a little bit, because it'd been quite a while since we saw any wrestling, so to just get onto it. But they just want to be annoying. That's the way they work. And then the whole story of this match early on was the Bucks are the tag team, Ospreay and Strickland, even though they're friends, are two singles guys, and the Bucks were just absolutely dominating the match because they can work together. They'd throw all their like double team moves together, and they could just overtake it, which is the way I like to see pretty much all tag teams versus two single guys to take place, which is two singles. I'd almost treat it like tennis, like a doubles specialist is going to be better in doubles match than if you're facing the two number one male tennis players or female tennis players, whatever way you're going to do it, because they don't play doubles very often. So it's it's not a completely different sport, but it feels like a completely different way of playing that sport.
Yeah, the dynamic is different, and that's actually like a pretty regular thing too. Like I'm pretty sure that's kind of almost a rule of thumb. I'm not like super following tennis, but like you don't put somebody who is used to one course of like their usual athletic regimen in that kind of way. And there's also the brother connection too. Like brothers would be able to, you would think at the very least, be able to have that sort of unspoken communication too.
Yeah. Well, especially if they've been teaming together for like probably close to 2 decades at this point. So they should know what they're doing, and much better than Ospreay and Strickland. So they told that story at the start, but then Ospreay and Strickland, both their mixture of like just fighting spirit and endurance, managed to withstand that onslaught. There was like good spots towards the end where obviously a lot of stuff was going on, like big moves where like the Bucks hit the Tony Khan driver on the outside Strickland, and so then they were just left with Will Ospreay. He kicks out of the BT trigger and also kicks out of a Tony Khan driver as well. And so like just get like, okay, Ospreay's just surviving all of this. They do the multiple super kicks. That's when Swerve comes in and takes the bullets for him. There was a cool spot where there was this cool sequence right in the middle where like they were just hitting loads of kicks and flips and all this other stuff, like just this big sequence of moves that just ends with a double Canadian destroyer by both the Young Bucks, but then fighting spirit from both Ospreay and Strickland hitting both the Hidden Blade and the House Call at the same time, and that was just okay. This is just these 4 guys just fucking rule. And yeah, the Swerve and Ospreay eventually get the victory, just taking out Matthew Jackson when Nicholas was taken out on the outside, not there to make the tag, hit with both a House Call and a Hidden Blade from the back and the front. And yeah, it was a nice like feel good result. So EVP storyline is done, seemingly done and dusted. No longer EVPs, they'll just be the Young Bucks. They're still around obviously because they got involved in the main event, which we'll talk about later, but they're just going to be the tag team Young Bucks, which is exactly what we want to see. Whether heel or babyface, they should just be the Young Bucks as a team, no longer managing the shows or using their influence to take things over or mess with people. It's just, just be what you are, which is one of, if not the best tag team in the world.
At least, especially like while you still can.
Exactly.
If you want to start being the general managers that fuck around with people when you're not able to wrestle anymore, like William Regal can do that now because he's not wrestling. But when William Regal was able to wrestle, I think you should probably step in the ring instead of just doing the outside stuff and whatever. And I was down on this story. I was happy to see this end. So major fan of the results of that and the match itself. Then over on the WWE side of things, unfortunately, then there was another scenario where I was just like, yeah, you didn't need to watch this, really. Oba Femi retained the NXT Championship over Yoshiki Inamura, and the big hook for everything, which was like, this is the best you got. was Josh Briggs getting a little bit involved, and eventually later on, Yoshiki Inamura was like, he went up to Oba Femi backstage and said, "Hey, I'm sorry for Josh Briggs." And then Briggs was all like, "Oh, well, God damn it. What the fuck? I'm going to go fight Oba Femi on Tuesday." So they're just going to follow this up with, don't you want to see them wrestle again? And don't you want to see Oba Femi beat Josh Briggs, the guy that's actually going to be sticking around, because Inamura's not going to be there forever. And then I guess another rematch with Inamura. And I didn't see the match well enough to be able to comment on the quality of what they were doing. So maybe they had a good match. But to be perfectly honest, I don't think I would have been able to get into it anyway, because there would have been no chance whatsoever that I would have looked at this and thought, okay, I got to watch out for that potential pinfall that Yoshiki Inamura is going to beat Oba Femi. And sometimes those things are surprising, and, you know, I get caught off guard and I'm wrong and whatever it might be. I'm not perfect in my predictions, never claimed that I am. But when you put somebody like Inamura in this kind of spot against a guy that's as dominant as Oba Femi, I can't get into it as much, because I know it's not going to be turning out that way. And then if you're putting something else against it too, you know, if I'm trying to watch the AEW show at the same time as this, and then you're switching over to the women's casino gauntlet, which something actually really matters, and it's going to be like, pay attention to more people, and that show's been doing better. And your big angle is just, how about the guy that's from Noah that we've had not be able to win the tag titles against Hank and Tank is fighting our super dominant champion that you would rather have retain anyway? Yeah, it doesn't translate the same for me. So maybe if I would have been watching this in a bubble and I didn't know that AEW existed and this is just the only thing that I watched, maybe I could have gotten into it more, but I didn't. I don't want to see Oba Femi against Yoshiki Inamura in a rematch where it's just, let's do the same match again. I'm not going to believe that he has a chance to win that match either. So I'm glad Oba Femi's still champion. Oba Femi's fucking great. And I'm not interested in seeing Josh Briggs get his ass beat. And I'm not interested in, let's try to build a Yoshiki Inamura rematch. So that was the next to last match for this. And then might as well just toss it out now, even though it happened a little bit in the other thing. The main event for Great American Bash was Blake Monroe and Jordynne Grace beating Fallon, Henley, and Jacy Jayne. You don't need to know anything about it. It's exactly what you thought it was going to be. The end. That's Great American Bash. A show that really didn't need to be a pay-per-view. And if I would have been spending, $300 or something, well, I wouldn't have, but if I would have been spending $200, $300 on tickets, I'd have been a little bit annoyed, to be honest, because I feel like probably the only things that really were worth any kind of investment were the Falls Count Anywhere match, which ended in sort of a dud. And I guess, you get to see Soul Ruca do the Soul Snatcher, and that's cool. So that was a dud of a show. I'm not going to put it down as like my worst event of the year type of scenario, but I do think if WWE is going to try to put stuff opposite AEW, you need to try way harder than this. It's not even a matter of like, you need to try a little harder. You need to try way harder than that.
Yeah, well, so they just did it to do it, and like if NXT has to get sacrificed along the way, then that's totally fine. As I say, they're not going to change things around and try and make it super spectacular just for the sake of it, because it's just, they just want to advance their own stories in the end. But I can't help but think about Mariah May just being there in that little building in front of probably less than 1,000 people, and doing her stuff, making her TV debut, and thinking, you could have been wrestling in front of over 20,000 people in a pretty prominent position, but follow her dream and all that stuff. That's up to her. But
more than likely, realistically, she would have been in the women's casino gauntlet. But
yeah, realistically, but still, would you do that than just a random tag team match? You're not even booked on the big women's show that's coming up the day afterwards.
Yeah. Well, she got to go to the bigger arena and, you know, go next door to the State Farm Arena, then show everybody that she could do that same sucking on her finger thing and wave to the camera. You know, so hey, you know, she was in front of more people than just the center stage.
Well, that's good, at least.
Yeah, I'm sure it's totally worth it. The women's casino gauntlet. So you liked this one better than the men's. I didn't. The order entry was Chris Statlander, Megan Bayne, Willow Nightingale. Good reaction for Willow Nightingale to come out. Like, they got to put that belt on her for sure. Tamello, Harley Cameron came out wearing a face mask because of her injury and got a huge pop and ran off Penelope Ford, but not part of the match. It was just like, you know, an extra little moment. There was Tekla, Julia Hart with Sky Blue, who made it a point to basically make herself a part of the match, even though she wasn't. Queen Aminata, Mina Shirakawa, Athena, Thunder Rosa, Sayuri, and Alex Windsor. And since the other NXT stuff was kind of like working its way out and everything at this point, I was paying a little bit more attention to this and all. I didn't like this as much as the men's, but I did like certain people in the match quite a bit. Some of them not quite as much as some other ones. I'm not impressed yet with Alex Windsor from what I had seen. And I didn't see anything from Sayuri that made me just go like, whoa, okay, good. Now everybody's been talking about Sayuri, like that kind of thing. She seemed fine. But the major standout for this match to me easily was Athena. And she won. And you know what? Cool. I'm down for it. I don't like the idea of everybody having the same titles, and like, you know, I don't think Dustin Rhodes should necessarily have 3 championships. I don't think that Mercedes should have a bunch of championships. I don't really love the idea of the ROH Women's Champion going after another belt, but Athena has been doing great stuff, and she is arguably the easiest pick to go for, like, who's the most interesting option here too. So that element of that, thumbs up for me. But I do think out of the 2 matches, I think that the men's was a little bit more fun.
So I thought this was far superior to the men's match.
So was it the pacing most so you were saying that you liked?
I think it was it felt way more chaotic in a good way than the men's match. The men's match felt a bit too stilted, and it was just like one guy after another. I felt this one felt like there was more bodies moving in the right moments and in the right places. I felt like it was just more involved with all the people. Maybe that's also due to the fact that you had like Anna Jay, Penelope Ford, Sky Blue, Harley Cameron that weren't officially in the match or get involved, but it just felt like there was more stuff happening all the time, which is how I think Casino Gauntlet matches should feel. And let's say some of the people that might come across like sensory overload, but I think in this one it just felt more, okay, there's a lot of shit happening most of the time. And I thought it also demonstrated just how far the women's division has come in terms of just star power. There was a lot of good reactions, a lot of and just like in-ring quality as well. Yeah, Willow got the biggest pop, and eventually she's going to win that title, but they're steadily building up to that, or they're just giving more opportunities at the moment. Continue the forever wars between Tekla and Queen Aminata. Could just see them beat the shit out of each other pretty much constantly, so I'm happy for that to happen. I thought Sayuri looked good and Alex Windsor looked good as well, but it's just a case of it's difficult to really, really properly show out when there's 10 other women in the match with you at the same time. Like, we'll have to wait and see when they have like singles and tag team matches to really get a full sense of how well they'll suit into this system. I mean, the one thing I knew as soon as Shuri came out and then she stared down with Athena is like, oh yeah, Shuri's winning the Ring of Women's Championship pretty soon.
I think so.
I don't think would. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I think by the next big pay-per-view she'll beat Athena for the title. So, and then Athena can just fully focus on just being back on AEW TV and can potentially win the world title off of that. So yeah, I don't think we need to worry about Athena being a double champion. I think Shuri's going to win that pretty soon. So, I say it wasn't perfect. I think and this is kind of travels over into talking a little bit about Supercard of One last night. The one kind of big negative I had in the match was Thunder Rosa. She just doesn't have it anymore, which is, you know, again, it's a mixture of age catching up, and just, as I say, she has a problem a lot of the have, which is you can apply it to someone like Britt Baker, as we've spoken about before. Same thing with I'd say Shida as well. Whenever she is able to appear, it's just they're not at the level of the talent they have now in the company. So like that was part of the reason maybe why Thunder Rosa could have won the title from Athena, is just to do it. But then having watched the match, like, yeah, I'd rather just have Athena hold the title because she's just better than Thunder Rosa. So
Thunder Rosa definitely was one of the weaker parts of this match for me, and I see exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I thought for the most part most of them were pretty good. Like, I think I'd say there are varying levels of in-ring talent in this one. I think on the weaker side you have like your Thunder Rosas and Julia Harts, and then you've got like Willow and Chris Statlander, who are absolutely great, and they can really hold these sort of matches together. Athena obviously doing really well. I thought the kind of the weirdest thing of this match was the finish, which can maybe make it seem a bit bad, which is I don't know why they decided that it should be a battle between Mina Shirakawa and Thunder Rosa for like a minute or two before Athena hits Mina Shirakawa with the O-face and gets the victory. I'm totally fine with Athena getting the victory that way, but it's a case of maybe it would have made a bigger deal if it was like Willow and Chris fighting, and like it looks like one of them's about to get the win over the other, and Athena just dives in, hits one of them with a move, gets the victory. It's not like it hurts Chris or Willow to get pinned. Like, they're pretty Teflon at this point. So, and it's a chaotic match, so it doesn't really matter who takes the pinfall in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it could have helped further along their like issues, which I assume will get picked up after All-In as well, rather than just having it randomly be Mina Shirakawa taking the pinfall. But either way, it has the right result. Athena gets to win this. She's could potentially be holding both belts. We don't know when that title shot is going to take place. But yeah, as I thought it was the better match out of the two Gauntlet ones. It felt more authentic to what I expect from Casino Gauntlet matches.
Then, as I said before, at this point, the NXT stuff was on a little bit of a hold, or the NXT stuff was over with the WWE stuff in general was on a little bit of a hold for at least couple more hours. So then I was able to pay a little bit more attention here and there to other things. Now I was starting to like figure out dinner and get other couple of things out of it. So I did miss part of the 3-way for the tag team titles. The Hurt Syndicate beat Jet Speed and the Patriarchy, but I was able to check out the ending of the whole thing, and that's the most important part of the whole thing. Patriarchy are the ones that take the loss. So we had talked about this on the previews, that it could be maybe the Patriarchy is there to lose, and then Jet Speed didn't technically lose, and maybe they could get another shot in the future. Christian's the one that gets pinned by Lashley after it was a spear, I think, right? Pretty sure it was a spear.
Yeah, spear, yeah.
And after the match, then Nick Wayne ends up doing a kill switch to Christian, and he does the overselling thing that I think is hilarious. And I love when this is on like, there's a few things that I kind of lump together in wrestling that I think is so over the top and so ridiculous, but I absolutely love it, which is I love when somebody gets thrown out ringside and they make the whole like, what are you talking about? Like they're all upset over the referee tossing them. And I love when people do what Nick Wayne did, which is I turned on my friend, my tag team partner, whatever, and I immediately look super upset and guilty about it afterward. So he did that, and then he, Kip Sabian, Mother Wayne, and FTR, who were ringside, all set up a concerto ready to go for Christian. And Adam Copeland comes out with that. It's not a bat. Did they give a name for that thing? It's got nails in it, and it's like a wooden plank of some kind. I don't know if it's like a cricket bat or something. But whatever that weapon is.
I can't remember the name of the weapon. It does have a name, but I can't remember the name of it.
It's not like Floyd, right? Like the Chris Jericho's bat. No. He makes a save, and Cope says, go find yourself instead of go fuck yourself. So here's what the big, the hubbub about. Christian does not deserve to have a babyface turn at the moment. Like, he didn't do anything to get that sympathy. And I'm assuming the go find yourself thing is supposed to be the go away and come back with some kind of epiphany you've seen the light, you've been enlightened and now you're a babyface thing. But it is a little bit weird to try to explain to people like, okay, this guy's like a terrible human being even during this match, and yet he's worthy of being saved afterward just because that other guy's babyface and he's going to do the thing for his friend. But hey, look, this is good for Nick Wayne. We're going to get at some point Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian against Edge and Christian, and then that'll move on to the more important match, Christian Cage and Edge against FTR. Cool.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of moving pieces in the tag team division moving forward, but so the match itself, I thought it was better than I anticipated it being. I thought the Hurt Syndicate really came to play for this one. Really liked the cool spot where Shelton Benjamin German suplexes Mike Bailey over the top rope onto everyone else with a moonsault. But I thought they were really, they had their working boots on, and I thought all three teams put on a really good show for a match which felt like a foregone conclusion at certain points, but have the Hurt Syndicate dominate for a while and then everyone else got involved. Yeah, so I thought it was a really fun tag team match. The turn at the end is a bit sudden. I think that the whole idea of it just immediately him dropping Christian and Mother Wayne and Kip Sabian immediately being on Nick's side for it is a little bit immediately on the nose. But fundamentally, and as I don't think this should realistically be the excuse for either rushed or, I would say necessarily bad, but just probably rushed or overly quick storytelling, is that they have a show in Toronto in a couple of months' time, and they want to put Edge and Christian together to fight, whether it is FTR, whether it's Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian on that show. So that's what they're going to plan on doing. I think it will be a bit of a gradual process. There's still a couple of months before that show, so they don't need to absolutely go head down and just immediately make Christian babyface. But it needs to be a case of, Copeland said, Copeland didn't come out to immediately help Christian because, he came out, actually ran to one side to do his usual entrance where he just goes up to the crowd a little bit. It wasn't like he was charging the ring to save Christian. He just came out to deal some damage to the people, to FTR in particular, that took him out. And didn't attack Christian, obviously, but just said, as they go find yourself. So it's just trying to see whether he does come back with this new perspective and being on the side of Copeland and reforming their unit as a tag team. So that's obviously the direction they're going to go in. Is it a bit sudden? Is it a bit rushed to get there? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it's hopefully it's one of those cases where the ends justify the means. If the reunion run as a tag team is a success and it goes well and people are into it, then it doesn't really matter if the turn was rushed, especially if it also helps Nick Wayne, his ascent to a higher level of stardom as well. Because I assume at some point he's going to have a one-on-one match with Christian as well, and that's always a good education to have as well. So yeah, as I say, I think that it'll be one of those instances where the end justifies the means. It doesn't really matter if the story was a little bit rushed. I also kind of got the feeling from this match that I think FTR are going to be the ones that beat the Hurt Syndicate for the tag titles.
See, I still kind of think that Jet Speed will, and then that FTR will be the ones that beat Jet Speed. But I do think that they're, if they want to go the one direction instead, then they could just kind of skip Jet Speed if that's not the case.
Well, I just think the route is eventually that Edge and Christian win the tag titles from FTR. So it's just how many steps do you have to take before you get to that thing, or how long do you have to wait until Edge and Christian have that match with FTR?
True.
So, well, as they wait and see, but I think there's plenty of routes they can take for this one. It was good to see tag team titles feel like a bigger deal on the show. I think I feel it was a really good match. And yeah, the turn is an interesting change of pace. So,
as far as interesting, Timeless Toni Storm retains the AEW Women's World Championship over Mercedes Monet. I didn't think that there was a chance that this was going to happen. Now, I can't say that I love it in some ways. I can say that I'm glad in some ways because I haven't been loving the Mercedes Monet character. I think it's It's everything that I thought was bland about Sasha Banks, but with more focus on it, so it makes it even more annoying. And I've never been a big fan of the Timeless Toni Storm character that I appreciate for the idea of, like, the best analogy that I can use when it comes to me and Toni Storm and AEW is the same as I can for things that I don't like, but I understand why other people like them. Like, I don't like, say, other sports. Like, I find basketball boring. And I know that immediately alienates a lot of people that are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Basketball's my favorite thing. Good for you. Like, you know what I mean? I find basketball boring. I would not be interested in watching a full baseball game, you know, more than once every couple of months or so. And I understand why people like some of that stuff. And my wife absolutely loves horror films, and I'm not as big of a fan. But I understand what she appreciates. And I get that Toni Storm's character is something different, unless you're Blake Monroe and you're trying to rip it off. And I get that by doing something different, that can be fun for a lot of people. And she's clearly really passionate about this character. And now she's a 4-time champion, so she's got the credibility behind her. I just don't like that aesthetic, and I don't find that fun. So between these two options, it was pretty much all right, I don't really like what Mercedes is doing, and I'm not really loving the Toni Storm thing. So even going into this, the biggest match that they've ever had in the women's division, I was sort of like, I don't fucking care. It is what it is, and I'm not really going to love the outcome no matter what. So at least I'm interested in why they didn't go with Mercedes. That's something different. And I have no fucking idea at this point who Toni Storm ends up dropping this belt to.
Athena.
Just as simple as you just think Athena's winning, and it's just going to be like just a kind of, you know, number one contenders match. Or do you think she's going to do like a cash-in thing? Or
I don't know. I don't really care. It's just going to be Athena's going to win the title. So.
And we have somebody with 2 titles again, or do you think she's dropped the ROH belt by that point?
I don't know, but I know she'll drop the RH title pretty soon afterwards, so she won't be a double champion for long, even if she is at any point. And I don't really, I'm not one of those people that says like, oh, there's too many double champions. Like, who the fuck cares? It's like move on. It's not the biggest issue in the world. I think that in terms of the match is excellent, as you would expect from these two. That's like I'm the Toni Storm character is not like my favorite gimmick of all time, but it fundamentally, I will look at it entirely objectively and say it's the greatest women's gimmick potentially of all time. I'd say at this point of all timelessness. I think that she is, outside of like the kind of the mummy Rhea Ripley thing, I think it's the she's the biggest women's star in the world, alongside Mercedes and alongside the likes of Rhea and Becky and stuff like that. But I think the whole work that she's done as character, she is on par, or at least very close to the top baby faces in all of AEW, which is like Hangman, Strickland, Ospreay. She's right at their level,
if not higher than some of them.
Yeah. And I'd say this match was like the confirmation of it. It was like, this is her moment on the biggest stage, and Mercedes is there to obviously be the biggest star, and everyone expected her to, well, I say everyone, but a lot of people expected her to get the victory because of the belt collector gimmick. But I think this is like a long-term story, or the start of a long-term rivalry between these two. Because fundamentally, even if Athena is the person I believe will beat Toni Storm for the title, long term, I think that realistically, it's going to revolve around 3 major players for AEW. It hopefully will revolve around 3 major players for AEW, which is Toni, Mercedes, and Willow. They're your 3 kind of pillars. And if you throw Chris Statlander in there as well, you've got 4 pillars available. That should be like the centerpiece of your women's division at pretty much all times. So this won't be the last match we see between Toni Storm and Mercedes. And I think that it was, as I say, it was an absolutely excellent match. I thought Mercedes' selling was fantastic throughout. I like the fact that she was very vicious. I like that Tony kind of went from being very playful and mocking of Mercedes early on, but then became more just like needing to fight from beneath to get the victory. I love the fact that how many times she had to hit that Storm Zero to finally get the pin, including the top rope, which finally did get the job done. Yeah, so it's one of the best women's matches they've ever had. I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's the greatest women's match that's in AEW history, but it's certainly high up there. And
I personally would probably rank the Baker, was that no DQ match? It's like it wasn't just like no DQ because they called it something else. It was like
Thunder Rosa, the St. Patrick's Day thing.
Didn't they have like St. Patrick's Day street fight? That's what it was. Yeah, like I found that better than this match, but like, you know, that was comparing one good thing to another good thing. Like, you know, it's not gonna, yeah.
See, I'd say this far exceeds that, but I don't know if it's on the same level as Willow and Chris from All Out last year, or the Tony Storm Mariah May match from Revolution. I'd say it's an easy top 5, I think, women's match they've ever had. And frankly, Mercedes in a few of the other ones that are high up there, and Tony Storm's been high on several of those ones as well. But yeah, that's a fun match, interesting result, and we'll see how much longer this reign carries on for, and also what Mercedes' reaction to this is, because first loss in AEW, she came out to the ring in a robe which had listed every single person that she'd beaten so far.
Oh, she did. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how she reacts to this loss and what it means for her. Does she start losing titles? Does she start feeling like a loss of confidence? And does it start to spiral from here? And maybe she has to lose everything before she can, you know, beat Tony Storm. It also makes her fallible to lose the TBS championship now because she's got the monkey off her back of her first loss. So I'm not saying anyone should just beat her for the TBS title, but it means that it's a more realistic prospect than it previously was.
So, Rob's here.
Yeah, Rob joined a little while ago.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I have my Discord feed is blocked by some other things like OBS.
No, I wanted to like tell him.
That was if you would have seen me on camera right then, you would have just seen my face just shake. Like, the fuck was that noise? Well, at this point, Rob, we've broken down everything that happened at Great American Bash and everything leading up to and concluding the Tony Storm Mercedes Monet. So, you want to give us a quick rundown of what you thought about any of those things?
Okay, Great American Bash was a lame show, and that's putting it mildly. Congratulations to all involved for participating. And the name of the game was All Out, All-In. Specifically, Adam Cole is out, and that broke my heart and took the wind out of me for a good portion of the show. But another Adam Copeland, brought it back. Very excited about that. I thought the casino gauntlets were fun, but a little underwhelming in terms of the surprises. But maybe that's my own fault for expecting, you know, massive surprises. And once I knew Adam Cole was out, I knew Dustin Rhodes was winning, because why else would he be there? But women's title match I thought was really good. I thought it lived up to the hype. I thought definitely the style of match I want to see from this division going forward. And I'm super excited because Athena's the next in line at some point to get a shot at this title. And before we move on to the next main event, I will say the Young Bucks, Swerve, and Ospreay can't have a bad match. It was a great match. Go out of your way to watch it. It was as fun as you could ever imagine from these four.
So there you go. There's Rob's catch up.
There's my quick thoughts on where we're at on this night.
And that went over to the winner takes all match for the AEW Not Quite Unified Championship. Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega having their fifth match? Yeah, it was fifth match together. They had a draw. Omega won the first. or Okada won the first, Omega won the last two, and now Okada's got another one in his belt. So great match. I could not tell you a comparison between the other matches. I had seen 2 of their other matches before. I didn't see all of them, so some of them I don't even know. I don't think any matches in the history of pro wrestling make any sense to be some kind of 7-star out of 5 thing. That makes no sense to me at all. That's kind of when people say, I give 110%. No, you don't. And I hate it. And I don't do star ratings as it is. I mean, I've done so many different types of ratings and reviews for 8 different outlets and multiple different podcasts and all that. I'm not a star rating guy when it comes to matches. I only do that really for movies. To me, this was a damn good match. And from all the matches that happened on the show, I would say it's my second favorite. It's another one of those potential match of the year type candidates for me. I'm glad Okada won. I think it was the right decision to go with him. So my only complaint about it is I just don't really like the idea of Okada being a part of the Don Callis family. And I know that there's been a lot of other people that are complaining online saying like that they didn't like the finish when it comes to Callis being, partially involved and everything. Yeah, it's kind of how I view it a little bit. So overall, my biggest thing is I just don't like the idea of this unified championship, carry the third belt for no reason thing. But that would have been the case no matter who won. And I'm glad that it was at least Okada.
I'm going to throw my name in the hat of people who hated the finish because I don't like interference. I didn't like interference in their second match when Cody was trying to throw in the towel for Omega. Like, you fucking let them wrestle. That's what they're here to do. I don't like the Don Callis thing. It's very, for lack of any better term, WWE to just do run-ins. And yes, there's a place for it sometimes, but like not here. Not when this is probably the last time they were going to fight. I didn't like the finish, but the match itself was, of course, freaking great. It wasn't as good as their others, but it was a masterpiece because of where they're at in their careers and the fact that Omega's had to battle back from insane injuries. I wanted Omega to win because I think you should just... I'm a big believer in do the thing while you've got them. And that's a big theme for me tonight, given Adam Cole. And I think if you're going to establish a new championship, Omega should help you establish the championship. And I will say, before I let Callum give his thoughts on the match, that Tony Khan addressed the interference on the post-show media scrum, telling Don Callis that, hey, had this been under Continental rules, I would have fired you. Therefore, moving forward, every Unified Championship match will be contested under Continental rules. And if you're wondering who is holding the belts, Okada's holding the new one and Callis is holding the other two. Very Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, when they gave Roman the new belt and they just carried around the other two just for funsies. But yeah, I thought it was a great match. For the record, there was like no bad matches on this show.
I'd say I thought this again was an excellent match. Someone who is such a big fan of their series that watched them live when they were happening, and they were the two best wrestlers, well, 2 of the 3 best wrestlers in New Japan at the time, alongside Tanahashi. Just to see this come back and just the anticipation for it and the match, I think, lived up to the hype. It was a different style of match to what they've done before. It was definitely more westernized, which I guess is to appeal to the audience that are now competing in front. They still had very much the, test of spirit and stuff like that, with like the exchange of forearms and punches, and had their usual spots with like drop kicks. But because they knew each other so well, they were able to reverse a lot of their moves and moments. But the biggest difference was you had the Kenny Omega diverticulitis and the gut injury, And so anytime there was an opportunity for Okada to strike at it, he would take it. There was a moment where he went for like the Rainmaker and Kenny Omega blocked his face. And so Okada just went straight to the guts instead. So that added just another layer of dimension to this where it was, okay, it's not so much just them playing the hits. It's, okay, they've got this injury that they're working into the match. And so that played a big part into the overall flow of it. Yeah, I can understand the interference being bad, but like the whole thing is, it's not really Okada versus Omega is not the feud. The feud is Omega versus Don Callis. That's the overarching narrative of this whole thing. And I'm not sure how that necessarily ends, because the only way I can really it should end from just a pure narrative satisfaction standpoint is that Omega kicks Don Callis out of AEW. But I don't want him to kick Don Callis out of AEW, because Don Callis can be a fun act, and he's a good commentator, and he's also like a good manager. So I don't know how it necessarily ends, and it can you can finally draw a line under it and never go back to it. But I don't think this is also the last time we'll ever see Okada versus Omega, just because they're now 2-2-1. So I think they'll have at least probably just the one more match, which will settle the record once and for all. Unless they have two matches where one of them ends in a draw and then they do another one after that as well. And so it's 2-2-2, and then you get the final big blow off one. I think they do it maybe in the Tokyo Dome at some point. Like they just loan them over to do a match on, even though they're both AEW guys, they've got the working relationship with New Japan, and that'll probably sell more than anything New Japan could anyway. So, yeah, but I thought it was just a really, really great match. One of the best on the show, of a show of a lot of good to great matches. So yeah, we'll see how the reign as unified champion goes, and who would be the eventual person to beat him. I'm imagining probably Takeshita in a war between the two Don Callis family members, or if Takeshita goes out of it, or if Okada goes out of it. Don't know which way round it would end up being, but yeah, it was a match that lived up to its billing.
I could see a scenario where the Young Bucks take a little bit of time off, and you get almost kind of the same thing as like the Christian setup, where Okada is teaming with Omega and the Young Bucks against the Don Callis family, which is like Fletcher and Takeshita and, say, I don't know, Josh Alexander and somebody else. And I don't know, there's your blood and guts next year or something. But at around this point in time, this was past the point that this was supposed to end, according to like the previous things, which is not the first time that happened this weekend, because I'm going to complain about it here because I don't get an opportunity to play a post show about ROH, but nobody on the entire fucking internet had any idea what the hell was happening with Supercard of Honor. And I was looking at that shit for the longest time over and over, to the point that it was even 6:00. And I remember looking and going, I still don't see anything about this having a pre-show at 7. I don't know. I guess it's just not going to have one. And then at the fucking 7:15 or something, I am like, you know what? I might as well start getting some of these tabs open up on my, what the fuck you talking about? They're having this. And I had seen multiple reports from all these people saying like, well, you know, All-In is going to end before Saturday night's main event starts, because the post show is basically booked for 8:15.
In fairness, when I told you on yesterday's hot tags, hey, it doesn't look like they're doing a 0 hour, it's because they didn't have 0 hour up.
Yeah, they didn't even have it at like 5:00 today.
They put it up at like 6:30.
It's absolutely absurd. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking.
So once I saw it, I sent it to you. And same thing with the scrum tonight, where it was like, yeah, you saw reports because we're just going by the fucking thing is set for 8:15 p.m.
Yeah.
Of course, the main event started at like 8:30. You know?
It was like 9:48 or something, and I was still like working on dinner and whatever, and I was just kind of like, so I guess I'm not going to be able to just watch Saturday night's main event. I'm going to have to still do this main event for this, because this is certainly going on for more than a half an hour, and, you know, whatever. So by the time that the Omega and Okada match ended, Saturday night's main event was starting up, and that turns into a thing with Randy Orton accompanied by Jelly Roll, who I've heard 3 people now this week alone say, who the fuck is this guy? I've never heard of him for anything other than when he pops up on WWE. And, that's how that works sometimes.
Monoculture is dead.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if, Jelly Roll has won a bunch of Grammys or American Music Awards or whatever. Nobody listens to anything other than what they want to. So if you're not gravitating towards Jelly Roll music, you don't know who the fuck he is.
I don't even think I would like a Jelly Roll dessert. I'm not a big jelly guy for that. So actually, I do think I have one of his songs in my collection. Let me double check for sure. Is he the one that does the song "I Need a Favor"? Or
that's him.
Yeah, that's a decent song. I would like it so much better if it had less of that country flair, because I don't like country music. But I don't like Logan Paul either, and he was there with Drew McIntyre, and I started to type out Drew McIntyre beats Randy Orton by pinfall through some interference from Logan Paul. Then Jelly Roll comes into the mix and kind of pushes him down. Instead, they ended up going with somewhat of the opposite, and then coming back around to that too, where Randy Orton beats Drew McIntyre, gets an RKO, and Logan Paul starts going after Randy Orton, and Jelly Roll comes and takes him off, and then he gets Claymore for it, and they've since then announced for that whole SummerSlam situation. Can't say I was super big on the match because I didn't watch the match because I was too busy watching Okada Omega and the setup of Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley for the Texas Death Match, and there was clearly a priority. Do I want to watch a thing that it's involving Jelly Roll and Logan Paul in a non-title, do nothing, go nowhere type of match between 2 really good guys like Randy Orton and Dean Ambrose, Drew McIntyre, or do I want to watch the 2 main events of the most important AEW show of the year? Yeah, I think I know which one I'm paying more attention to, and I don't regret it at all. Because
that being said, gun to my head, if you would have told me, hey, they're doing Drew and Randy because it's going to lead to Randy teams with Jelly Roll against Drew and Logan Paul at SummerSlam, I wouldn't have thought that at all.
Any scenario that ends with the phrase Randy Orton teams with Jelly Roll, just in any capacity, I would have been like, you lost me a little bit there.
I was kind of hoping, I know why they're doing it the way they're doing it. I was kind of hoping for like a 5 to 7 minute one-on-one match for just Logan Paul, Jelly Roll, and just in, out, and you're done. The idea of Drew with Logan Paul, I don't like. It seems very forced. It doesn't seem like Drew's character would like Logan Paul at all.
Yeah.
Randy actually seems like he's perfect to team with Jelly Roll at this stage in his career, I'm not gonna lie. But we'll see what they do.
Oh, that match was happening, but the far bigger importance was Hangman Adam Page against Jon Moxley. And this match went on long enough that it also went into some other stuff on Saturday night's main event. But Saturday night's main event was kind of a hack job shit show. So that's all over the place. And you were better served not paying attention to any of that. Even if you weren't watching AEW at the time, I'm pretty sure that it would have been better if you didn't waste your time. There's lots of other things you can watch instead. But
except for one thing, which will have far-reaching consequences.
That's one of those things. It's like, it's a news report. You don't need to have seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you definitely should watch the Texas Death Match. Hangman Adam Page beats Jon Moxley, full-blown WrestleMania 40. You got everybody coming out to beat down all the other people, and the surprise returns. You get Will Ospreay gets taken out on a stretcher, so there's another person that's not going to be around to help, but we've got backup in a luchador. Oh, it's Bryan Danielson. He gets his shots in. Darby Allin rappels down from the rafters, does his whole Sting kind of tribute. Prince Nana takes the Marita Shafir out of the equation. She's handcuffed. You got the Swerve Strickland thing with the chain. As far as just like specific spots go, I'm not going to write down on the end of the year where it's like this one move in this was the coolest spot of the year, but it's Page against Moxley and a Texas Death Match. They were bleeding pretty quickly. There's forks, there's glass, there's a bed of nails, you know. Fuck yeah, this match was great. And I loved the very ending of it too. But I'll save that for some of you guys to get into too. So
you shouldn't do this match a lot, or this style of match a lot. But I think this was the best hardcore world championship match I've ever seen. Bar none. I like the fact that H8 felt like they fucking hated each other. Moxley was getting stabbed with a fork immediately and just bleeding immediately, and you can see the wound opening up, and you know, they had big shards of glass which Mox would then crush with his foot and drag Hangman across. Like, again, not everybody needs to do this. You shouldn't do this a lot. But this was everything it needed to be. And you mentioned WrestleMania 40. This blew that shit out of the water. I don't even mean that in the way of like, oh, that sucked. That was fun too. But this was like, everybody got involved. Even some people I didn't expect. I didn't expect the Young Bucks to try to stop Hangman Page from winning. I kind of thought they would go away, lick their wounds after not being EVPs, and then come back maybe as baby faces. But this was phenomenal. You have the moment where, you know, Swerve hands Hanger the chain. There's like this moment of agreement between the two. You have a bed of nails, which is gross. So much of this was just so well done. And I mean, we kind of skipped over the entrances of Hangman's got his babyface theme and the place goes nuts. I actually think that he's got other themes that are better and has had better entrances, but doesn't matter because the place went nuts. Like, this did what it was supposed to do. The place went nuts. And I loved it. And Callum, tell me how it's your favorite match of the year.
It's definitely high up there for the choices. I think that like as soon as the entrance, when it was the return to the babyface Hangman entrance, I went, yeah, he's winning the title. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. But then there were moments in the match which made me think, oh, he's not winning the title, and like that made me a little bit worried. That's the sign of a great match. I think, bar none, this is Jon Moxley's greatest ever AEW match. I think this was the greatest performance he's ever put on in a match. He looked like an absolute killer throughout the entire thing. And he's had great matches in AEW, not devaluing any other ones, but I just thought this was the most that he felt like the top heel, the top guy in the company. Where it's just like, yep, he's like an absolute murderous like villain, and it was perfect. And Hangman was obviously right there with him, like all putting out some great moments. Like for the moment, like Hangman stabbing him with a fork. It might be one of the first, maybe not the first time, but a very rare instance where I just turned away from the screen because like how viciously he was stabbing him in the head with the fork. And I think it's been by design that Moxley hasn't been bleeding a lot because he used to be bleeding pretty much every week for a time in AEW, and he doesn't do that as often now. But then in this one, he's just gushing out all over the place.
He's getting his fix at home.
Yeah,
it was genuinely awesome. Actually, Callum, you turned away. I like couldn't move my eyes from it because the whole like wound is just opening with every stab, and you're just like, wow, this is a fucking fight. It was fantastic.
Yeah. You had like broken glass being introduced, and there were so many moves that's being taken on that, and they're just rolling around in the broken glass. You had like Rich Fear get taken out with like a driver through the table earlier on. This is where Death Riders get involved. Kind of worked. I feel bad for Will Ospreay because Swerve did get involved in the end, but clearly not didn't care enough to save his tag team partner from early in the night getting neck pulmonized. But
yeah, that was weird.
I wonder how long that'll be Ospreay, if he's just taking some time off to spend some time at home. Which seems quite weird because his missus is now part of AEW as well, so it feels like
maybe they gotta go looking for a house or something.
Maybe. But
in this economy,
but it was cool to see just the people get involved. Like I think the thing that for me raises this above the WrestleMania 40 thing, other than the fact that I thought just the match is better surrounding that as well, is just take the Steph match is better than Bloodline Rules. Just putting it out there. But I think that is the fact that there weren't entrance themes for a lot of the interferences. Just you had the Darby Allin video thing, which is obviously his little aspect of it, but you shouldn't have entrance themes for this stuff. It's not natural, and it's not how you'd expect these things to happen. It should feel organic, and most of these interferences felt organic, so that helped out. I like the fact that they weren't super involved towards the end. The only people that were really there at the end were the Bucks eventually, which was the best thing they could have done, because they've done the moment of like, okay, Danielson and Darby have come together and they've thrown out the rest of the Death Riders. So this is when Hangman makes his big comeback and starts taking them out. But then Marina saves Moxley from being taken out, or he pulls him out to get him back on his feet after he'd been hit with the dead eye through the table, gets him back to his feet, and that's when the Bucks get in, and that's when you feel like, oh, that was Hangman's moment, and he's not going to be able to withstand this, but the crowd gets him to his feet, and then you have Swerve with the chain come out and hand it over to Hangman to win it. I like the fact they teased the hanging spot, but then they took it away, and then you had to have Hangman drop him on the bed of nails first, and then hang him afterwards. And it was the same finish to their first Texas Death match, but that was quite poetic to have pretty much the same exact finish of him having to tap out from choking him with the steel chain. I thought Moxley sold that fantastically as well to just cap off his brilliant performance. And then you get that nice cathartic moment of Hangman getting hold of the briefcase, take it out, and then for the first time in 9 months, we get to see the AEW World Championship be held aloft in front of everybody. And it was just the perfect ending to this really pivotal show, which just feels like the way they talked about it on commentary is like, this is a new era for AEW. And I know they've just right now, it just feels like this is AEW is in the ascendancy like it hasn't been. And this was the start, both the culmination of a great story recently and like what everyone wanted to see, but also feels like a launching pad for a continued growth and hopeful some more good times ahead. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Death Rider story, totally worth it.
Okay.
That's like, don't care. And you might say some things. I don't actually care. Don't care what you say. Don't care about the bad moments. Don't care about any of the other things. Totally worth it. This moment, totally worth it.
So I believe that this is the kind of mirror to their Bloodline story, except they ended it at WrestleMania 39. And they didn't drag it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's the parallels can be, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Bloodline had bad moments in it and bad matches. And
right, but it also had that really good peak where if it would have ended at 39, I think people would have said, great.
And it did the job of like setting up some big stars, the way that this Death Riders thing ultimately made some people bigger stars. But man, you have to get through, and it's like people don't do this as much as they should. But like when people talk about, we need the Attitude Era back. No, you don't. You need the big payoff moments that you remember really liking back. It's, across the board. Like you watch actually week to week, the episodes of Monday Night Raw, there were a lot of stinkers. A lot of shit really was not that fucking great because you
want the big stars, the big pops, the big moments.
Yeah.
And nothing. Or if you just want the tits, you can watch porn. Like that's basically
But it's like people don't like to do that rose-colored glasses perspective. They like to do the nothing was better than when Austin was on top, and you're like, are you talking about the 3 segments over a 7-month period, or are you talking about the But you remember
this? About the Beaver cleavage times,
right? Yeah. Are we talking about an episode of Monday Night Raw where it starts off and it's just like, oh god, what was the name of that one guy that like it wasn't Ludwig Borga? Crap. There was a guy that came in like the very beginning. Was it?
Brackus?
Brachus, yeah. Like, is it going to be like some fucking Brachus match? Are you going to really get into that? No. So, and this is one of those moments that, like, yeah, this is going to go down as one of those great moments in AEW. And it's a great reset in a lot of ways. 100% down for it. Obviously on my list of potential matches of the year. Awesome.
And again, I said this on the podcast, predictions, but I think this was the symbolic closing of the chapter. And, I saw a lot of this. They righted their greatest wrong, and you see, Punk beating Hanger, and now Hanger has the belt back. And I think in a lot of ways they did you can kind of turn the page on all of that now. And this was a great match. I'm super curious as to what's next for him, because he feels like he should be champion for a while. But that also means you need to set up a steady line of challengers. And I'm curious as to what's next.
Well, we know at the very least that MJF holds a world championship opportunity in his hands. So,
see, but I think he's the guy who wins it.
Oh, I think so too, but I think it comes sooner than a lot of people might expect.
I guess it really depends on if they clarify that it is like a cash-in thing.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because Sean Ross Sapp did ask Tony Khan that during the media scrum. Now, MJF earlier in the day had said it's a cash-in deal. Tony Khan then said he will be giving more clarity to that later. He talked about how last year cashing in was the format, but there have been other times where there was a set date for the challenger. So he says while the challengers will have some say, it might not be just a Money in the Bank style cash in, which I think is interesting.
So it seems, at least for now, that it's going to be an RVD. I want to cash in for this pay-per-view thing, as opposed to go ahead, referee, come on.
Yeah. Hopefully that is the route, because I don't like you can't you shouldn't just like copy WWE's approach to that. So hopefully they do something with some element of warning. But I mean, I'm totally down for Page and MJF to resume their feud, because fundamentally, like we've discussed it multiple times, that's your hero and your main villain. Like that should be a long running story. I know we just had Moxley be the kind of de facto villain, but realistically, since AEW started, it's been Hangman has been the babyface hero, MJF's been the heel villain for the most part. And so hopefully they do end up clashing over the title, and it's a really good feud between them. I could totally envision a situation where MJF beats Page for the title fairly soon, and then Page wins it back from him to continue his feud. We don't need to have 9-month title reigns all the time.
You're preaching to the choir, brother.
Yeah.
I am so sick of 9-month title reigns.
Yeah. So we'll see how it ends up going. I mean, to be fair, MJF has done a lot of things in the past where it's, with the Ospreay thing with the American Championship, he just held that title for like a month or two and then dropped it back to Ospreay. Like, you can do those things as well. It's just I say we'll see how it goes, but it just feels like it's a new, exciting venture, and we'll see how things go. Like, things have been steadily improving with AEW, just from the quality and vibe standpoint of the company. So it's just nice to see. Also, Rob, just asking for like the press thing, because obviously Sean asked that very, I think, very good question. Was he also? I assume he wasn't the idiot that asked Athena about Goldberg.
Wait, what?
So there was someone in the presser essentially that, like, because Athena was on the presser because she'd won that the gauntlet match, and so she was being asked questions. And then someone asked her a question about what do you think about like Goldberg's retirement and that stuff.
What the fuck? Why is it so hard for people to know their job at these things? You guys don't ask any decent questions, and then you ask Io Sky if she's got any tag team members, and you ask her who wants to fight Taylor Swift and shit, and like.
So, I will admit, the first question that I heard that made me roll my eyes was, Dustin just tells Renee how good it feels to win the title. he is then asked, "How does it feel to win the title?" At which point, I just like, I hate when people do that. I didn't hear Athena get asked about Goldberg. I don't know why. Now, admittedly, I can understand asking Tony to try to get a quick headline, but why are you asking Athena? What does that have to fucking do with anything? But no, that was not Sean Ross Sapp.
Yeah, I presumed it wasn't, but like, oh yeah. So I'm getting the actual quote here. So someone asked Athena if her win was bigger than Goldberg's retirement match tonight.
Well, okay. So you're just like you're fishing for a headline there.
Yeah.
That's stupid. The fuck does Athena?
I just always point that out because, like, you know, the wrestling media is just not universally, because present company excluded and present and some other people that are actually good at their jobs, but there's a large proportion of the wrestling media that are just fucking dolts.
I mean, yes,
the media.
Yeah,
yeah. The media, yeah, that's fucking dolts as well.
As I scroll through and see that the fucking White House has tweeted out a picture that they photoshopped Trump on Superman, saying the symbol of hope, truth, justice, the American way, Superman, Trump. Like, yeah, the media, the fucking media these days. That's what it is.
No, I love the fact the boys just went over everybody's head. It's great.
Yeah. The White House account, the Homeland Security account, it's become like a super meme shit show, and I don't get why.
Because we're like, okay, we don't need to get into this. The point being, because the fucking idiots. That's why. But the media.
To circle this back around, listen, the wrestling media, I see it like this. There's Brandon Thurston. There's Brandon Thurston as a journalist is atop the ladder. There's Sean Ross Sapp for the scoops. Everybody else kind of falls underneath the rest of that because there's very few people who do great work in wrestling media, and asking Athena about Goldberg is ridiculous.
Yeah, but yeah, let's not drive too far into the negative because like AEW overall gave us a great show for All-In. I would say, just from my tastes and someone that's went to both of the previous All-Ins in Wembley, I will say, from my perspective, America should never have stadium shows again for pro wrestling. Because you guys suck in terms of audience reactions.
We're not as fun. But no. I will say, I think this was the best main event of all the previous All-Ins. Although had Danielson won gives it a run for its money.
Yeah, the Danielson one holds it close to that. Like, I always remember that one just because I was there in the building when it happened. But this was, it was an awesome main event to an overall awesome show. You know, it had its low points. There were some like things which hopefully wouldn't happen. Like, would hope that it wouldn't be a situation where like someone like Adam Cole is forced away due to injury, and a few other little bits and pieces. But overall, I thought it was an excellent show and definitely a high contender. Probably for show of the year for AEW, which is probably the first time I'll ever say All-In would get that. Because even though I enjoyed last year's All-In, I enjoyed the one beforehand, especially from being at them. Like, this one felt like the real culmination of that. Of like, this is your WrestleMania now.
Yeah, this is your WrestleMania now. They've got the formula with the Owen winners challenging, and everything felt like such a big deal. You know, the Adam Cole thing was a huge heartbreaker, but you have, you know, Cope and Christian with the "I love the go find yourself" line. It was a little rushed, and there's a lot happening in that segment, but very excited for the future there. I'm excited to see where Mox goes, and for the record, I think he's going home for a bit, but I'm excited to see where he goes when he comes back. I want to see who lines up for Hangman, who lines up for Tony, who lines up for Mercedes. I'm very excited for the future of all of these championships. You know, I think Dustin getting a win at the caliber he did is very cool. I think I'm ready to see somebody beat the Hurt Syndicate, but that's okay. We know where it's going. We know it's coming. I had a really good time. I had a really, really great time watching the show.
But guys, WWE has to get the last word because
and boy,
we don't want it to be a matter of people are talking about the AEW show. We want to get them talking about the WWE things. And at this point, don't you want to see that Naomi jumps Jade Cargill after fucking 20 minutes of commercials and wastes of time and backstage segments of this show? That, by the way, she's going to be the special guest referee for Evolution. Okay, moving on. And then Solo Sikoa beats Jimmy Uso in a match that would be on Friday Night SmackDown. And the big ending is Jacob Fatu stands opposite Talatanga. And don't you want to see those two guys fight, as we've teased already? And then, and really, I'm skipping over it because it's like, what? Okay, so Solo beats Jimmy. What else do you have to say? And then Seth Rollins gets injured.
So I put it on as like maybe a minute and a half before the injury. I put it on my second screen as I'm waiting for the scrum to start. And I'm watching and I go, oh, nice senton. Oh, he's going for a Lions Saw. He's feeling really daring, and God knows those were that was a prophetic thought for me, because he goes for that Lions Salt, lands on his feet, and crumbles, and I went, uh-oh. And Paul Heyman's laughing, and suddenly he looks, and it's, uh-oh. Doctor comes over. I'm thinking, oh, fuck. This is when you know it gets bad. They quickly rush to Rollins gets up, limps over to LA Knight, who hits him immediately with BFT 1, 2, 3. And it's like, Rollins isn't supposed to lose clean to LA Knight. Oh shit. The top guy with Roman out that you've been selling is the top guy. Like, that's the story you've been selling since WrestleMania 41. Is now injured with another knee injury, and God knows how long he's going to be out. Holy shit, this show and this weekend for WWE is so snake bitten because they had a shit show for NXT. I'm sorry, love that roster. That was a pathetic show. Now you have Rollins gets injured. You better pray to God that he's back in a month. And it's just a little like, whoops.
Just tweaked his knee, and after staying off and rehabbing it for 3 weeks, he's going to be fine or something. But
yep, you better hope
that SummerSlam plan, whatever it would have been, he's Mr. Money in the Bank, and
maybe not even SummerSlam. Maybe we're talking all the way through Mania.
It could be. And obviously that was definitely their plan when it came to the War Games match. And they literally were saying, this is our plan to go into WrestleMania next year. They had Paul Heyman say it.
Yeah, this is the guy who's headlining WrestleMania.
Now, of course, that's not something that WWE plans for Seth Rollins to get injured. And you can't blame Seth Rollins for getting injured. And it's not like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is just poor storytelling. But it's just like, that sucks, man. Like, you put all your eggs in that basket, and now you got to figure it out.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying...
No, definitely not. You're not. I'm putting it out there for the people that think that we are.
Where nobody fucking cares what you're doing. You just... There goes your whole... You know how leading up to Cena's retirement tour, we were like, I'm so worried he's going to get injured. This is the kind of thing that we worried about. We're just like, oh, fuck. That's totally out the window now. And again, I hope he's healthy. Look, I already watched my favorite wrestler on the other company potentially go down forever tonight. I'm not looking forward to seeing Seth Rollins on the shelf for any length of time. But it's the idea of like all this because you had to run opposite AEW's Mania.
Mm-hmm.
Stop.
It kind of feels like it's almost like a karma thing, like the things were as bad as they were tonight.
And let's talk about the immediate consequences. Literally minutes later, you now have a Goldberg match that has 30 minutes to fill.
And they decided to do the same thing again that they did the last time, which was we're going to have somebody come out for the main event. Before that, we're going to have commercial break. Then we're going to have somebody come out for the main event. Then a commercial break. Then we're going to start the match. But almost immediately after starting the match, we're going to cut to a commercial. And then 5 minutes later, we're going to cut to a commercial in the same match. And then when it ends with, for people that still want to know the results, because LA Knight beats Seth Rollins because they have to end the match early. Gunther retains over Goldberg through referee stoppage. And it's like, Michael Cole's like, ah, man, that sucks for Goldberg. It's not about who's next, but now what's next? Anyway, bye. And it's just like, whoa, okay, what? They cut to another commercial break, and that's 9:57. And then they come back again for 30 seconds of Goldberg being like, yeah, it sucks that I lost, but, and then that's the end of the thing.
Really?
What the fuck with these commercials and this editing and all? Like, WWE, we know that you're morally bankrupt with your money obsession going on right now, and a lot of other things as well. But, like, you can't do a show like that. What the fuck? Who's the editor behind this?
So I had watched them cut to commercial abruptly, and we'll circle back and talk about the match. But I was just like, that's super weird. And then they cut Goldberg off mid-speech because at that point I'm fully watching the scrum. So that's crazy. That's terrible. That's a sad way to go for Goldberg, because regardless of what I think about his in-ring ability, he's a fucking top star. I think I said this on the podcast yesterday. I think Tony Khan could have booked Goldberg with a lot of dominance and respect for Goldberg. So that's a shame.
I thought he had a better match than I was expecting. I'll give him that.
He did and he didn't. Like, the first half of it, I thought he was very dominant, which was weird for me. But then the match ends with, like, he hits a jackhammer. He sells his knee, but legitimately, I'm not sure if he just couldn't get back up. And Gunther quickly gets him in a sleeper, and that's it. And I hope it was just selling. And that he's not like that, his knees aren't that bad off, because then that's concerning, and maybe he shouldn't have done the match to begin with. But there you go. There's Goldberg's career.
So the worst about this whole thing is the Rollins thing. But Callum, hearing these things because you didn't watch the show. I mean, I'm sure I didn't sell you.
I did watch Goldberg versus Gunther.
Oh, you did? Well, you missed out on that Solos Ago match, man.
Yeah, no, that was a real like faux
that was a barn burner
on my account. Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't miss the not so yeet man losing his opportunity. I mean, it just like it hurt my soul seeing Goldberg just push Gunther over to start with, and it's like I just went, oh no. So this is because as soon as he did that, I realized, oh fuck, they're having a match. Like, it's not just gonna be a couple of spots and it's over. No, they're actually having a match. From what I saw, it wasn't terrible. Like, it could have gone a lot worse. It's not Ric Flair dies halfway through his final match. But
hey,
but
he allegedly. It's great.
Yeah, allegedly. But coming back from a commercial break, because even because I watched it on YouTube, they still they didn't actually show the commercials, but just like the space where there's a commercial break taking place. And just coming back to that and just seeing Goldberg just laying limply in a leg lock for a few seconds, it's like, oh, this is so painful to try and watch, like him having to try and gut his way through this. And the fact it's like again, I know there is a means of reverence to the veterans of the past, and like I saw someone write this on Twitter after Dustin Rhodes won the title, but I guess it bears resemblance here. Is like nostalgia will always get into the way of wrestling's evolution. or something along the lines of like nostalgia will always prevent wrestling from being taken either seriously or improving or just reaching the next level. Because realistically, the time where wrestling really exploded, or the times that wrestling really exploded, were periods when people said fuck nostalgia, pretty much for the most part, which is the Attitude Era, which is basically fuck all those old guys that are just in WCW and doing this stuff. So, but I understand there is some credence, like Sting and all that other stuff. Like it can be done very well and it can be effective. But like seeing Goldberg hit the jackhammer and only not getting the pin because he's had to move off because his leg was hurting a little bit. Like he pretty much, like if he'd gotten the cover straight away, you're meant to believe that he would have pinned Gunther and become world champion. And it's like, dude, he's nearly 60 years old. Like it's done. It's over. like what are we doing here? Couldn't you just put him against, I don't know, Miz or Carmelo Hayes or someone like that? Just have him squash a guy in 30 seconds and give us the Goldberg send off we all kind of wanted.
Like I completely agree.
Like it's just like it's I don't know who it satisfies really. Maybe it satisfies like his fan base said like, okay, you got one semi-decent match in his career where it's like it wasn't a terrible match by any stretch of the imagination. It was totally fine, but it's just the ramifications probably won't be severe or anything along those lines, but it does feel like every match you've done this year, pretty much every match you've done this year, you've absolutely destroyed Gunther's aura. Like it's nothing now. He's just a nobody that's holding championship. And like this didn't help it either because he came off as looking as mostly second best in this match and only foiled Goldberg due to Goldberg's dodgy knee. So that's that's the overall ramifications that will be the effects of it. But as someone who is no longer a viewer or fan of WWE, seeing what the reaction to both Great American Bash and Saturday Night's Main Event in comparison to what a great show All-In was, this might be the most cathartic weekend of my entire wrestling fandom. So I've got to give them credit for that. So thank you WWE for sucking as you always do.
No, but seriously, I think there's a discussion to be had of like, hey man, if you're fucking thinking about putting another NXT / Saturday Night's Main Event header up against an AEW, don't do it. You're making your main roster look bad. You're making your developmental roster look bad. You're making your women look bad because you booked them like shit going into the all-women's pay-per-view tomorrow. Don't cut your nose to spite your face. Because as bad as this is, I still say it's miles ahead of what it was, in the depths of like the all we have is John Cena era. And there's great talent on the roster. But you're fucking them all over because you're like, we're just going to book for two things, money and to spite AEW. And the shows are coming off like shit because of it. Stop doing that.
So that's not a great 2-for-1 attempt at attacking AEW this weekend. And I'm not more excited about what Goldberg's future is than I was before. I'm not more excited about Gunther's title reign. I am disappointed about the Seth Rollins thing, which again, WWE did not book that. That's not something we can criticize on the same front, but it is just like, it happened. Now you got to deal with it. I do think that there's a chance that this could lead to something that's interesting though, because more than often, when WWE gets thrown some kind of a curveball like this and they have to fall ass backwards into something else, it tends to be better than what they were originally planning. To be perfectly honest, I haven't been loving this Seth Rollins thing. I am not looking forward to the next 9 months of exactly what we've been seeing every single beginning of episodes of Raw for, every Monday night for the next 9 months. And, it sucks for my fantasy team. Seth Rollins is the first guy I drafted. So if he's out, then there goes my fucking team.
Gonna need those trades coming in pretty soon, it looks like.
Probably. It depends on what they announced and, what more information we get. But I'm hoping
Tongan you gonna draft next.
I'll wait and get Tama Tonga when they can do that. Didn't work for last year. I don't know. But the future of that, of course, could derail everything. Like, look at what happens every time that The Rock steps in and fucks something up. It's like Rock says 1, 2, 3, and then they're like, all right, well, we were hoping that he would have said 4, 5, 6. So now here goes the entire card for WrestleMania is changed. And if Rollins was supposed to be the head of this whole thing going forward, and the War Games match, and maybe cash in Money in the Bank pretty soon, are we going to get a first time ever where Mr. Money in the Bank vacates the briefcase? Like, willingly?
So,
because he can't wrestle to lose it the way that they've done with, they shouldn't have at the moment, but when they did the thing with Kennedy, if he can't wrestle, he either has to just keep the Money in the Bank briefcase and just go away, which Triple H might even like, you know what I mean?
I'd be okay with that.
Or it'll be that he has to give it up, and if he gives it up, does he give it to Braun Breaker?
That's the way I see it going. Or you go Paul Heyman 6, Braun Breaker on Seth Rollins. And that's that. And it'll just be a faction built around Braun Breaker instead of it being built around Rollins. And you can get a insert name here to become the pin guy.
And who knows, maybe that's where Ricky Saints comes in. There's a lot of ways that this could go that could be very interesting. And it's not what they would have hoped for, because it sucks that Rollins is injured. And for all we know, maybe we do get some kind of a thing on Monday or whatever, where it's like he's going to be out for a month and then he's going to be fine, or whatever it might be. But SummerSlam, I don't know. And for all of this to just be like the big culmination of, this is our big idea of how we're going to fight against this AEW show. You guys lost today. And,
what did we learn?
Maybe we don't need Heat Wave to happen at the same time. And maybe we don't need to throw another, it's Heat Wave and it's Saturday night's main event. And it's also Bad Blood. And it's, the 205 Live is coming back, or whatever the fuck it might be. But major thumbs up on AEW. Just a few things that I wasn't as super duper hyped about in comparison to some major big things that are really great. Major thumbs down overall for NXT Great American Bash, and major thumbs down for Saturday night's main event. You're not rolling into Evolution super strong, WWE.
Yeah, AEW was a tremendous show. I wish I was watching more AEW tomorrow. NXT was a dud. Saturday night's main event was an actual failure. Actually hurt the brand moving forward. Shame.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with my AEW viewings for the weekend between this and Ring of Honor, which we'll talk about on the hot tags a little bit, cover that in a bit more detail. But between those two shows and some of the matches saw across the weekend, can't help but be thoroughly satisfied with what I've seen, and just really excited for what the immediate future holds for us, because it does feel like it's everything's on the up right now. So hopefully it doesn't come crashing down anytime soon.
Stay tuned for that Jelly Roll match, everyone. Well, of course, let us know what you think. If you're listening to this after the fact instead of on the live chat, tell us your thoughts, comments below. Keep in mind that I'm not checking the comments as often, and if YouTube doesn't send me an email for things, then I'm not going to be as quick to respond, but I always read everything at some point. And if you want to show your support for us, remember, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell, pass along a little spare change with the thanks button, the YouTube channel membership, and all those different ways to sponsor that. Go to amangotree.com and you will find the link tree that I have with social media accounts for Fanboys Anonymous, Smark Out Moment, and myself. So follow any of those that you're a part of. Make sure you're following Rob and Callum too.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. Check out my work on Fightful.com. Check out all of Sean's great reporting on Fightful. Check out our interviews with Tony Storm. More to come with names like Mark Briscoe, Kyle Fletcher, and all that good stuff there.
Did they tell you what they thought about Goldberg?
I don't think Sean was stupid enough to ask them about Goldberg. But I do know that Tony Storm's favorite movie is Master of Disguise. So there's that.
That kind of tracks.
You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Wigmaster14. Check out the Power Rankings that went out earlier today, or early on Saturday. I don't know what day it is now. To check out that stuff. Obviously, it doesn't account anything from Saturday night's main event, Great American Bash, but that will be in next week's one. So make sure you tune in next week to see where all that stuff and Evolution, where that leaves everybody in the standings. And then you can also check out the Fantasy League, which will soon to be updated with the points where I get all the results from Great American Bash and Saturday night's main event locked in, as well as Evolution. We get to see who has come off the best out of this three-peat failure of a weekend for WWE. Well, currently 2-peat, potentially 3-peat.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, we don't quite know until this time tomorrow, or a little bit earlier this time tomorrow, but
maybe it's stupid, but I have more faith in the women at this point.
Women. That will be tomorrow with the WWE Evolution Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show. Of course, live coverage on smarkoutmama.com, live coverage on eWrestling News, live coverage on The Ring Report, all the news that happens when it comes to those potential title reigns, which I've pre-written all of them that I can imagine happening. So I'll have to just tweak a little bit of that if it happens. But all that stuff you will find tomorrow. The pay-per-view point for this triple edition is over with. Let me know what you think about the setup here. If you think it would have been better to just do 3 separate recordings, if you would like that more, you don't like the combo things, or whatever it might be, I don't know. I'm always down to hear some feedback. So drop your thoughts about that and anything else in the comment section below, and make sure that you are following us and staying tuned. We'll see you tomorrow with WWE Evolution. So thank you for listening. But adios for now. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.